Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. All right, here we go. Hi, Mallory. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to have you back.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm very excited to be back.
Yeah, I've been thinking about you and I've been thinking about having you back. And then right after our last conversation, like as in the conversation you and I had, which was not recorded, I just thought about what we said about the artist way. And and I had this idea of like, oh yeah, let's get together and just chat about the artist's way and maybe share our relationship to it, maybe pick a couple passages and yeah, so this is really kind of like a, you know, warm, relaxed fireside chat with Mallory about the artist's way.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm excited.
Um, so upon revisiting this text, what really struck me was how this is one of those books that you can literally open to any page and you'll just be mining like pure wisdom that's also expressed in a really gritty way. Like, I think coming back to it this time, I didn't realize like what an emo Pisces Julia Cameron is. And it's like this is really like wisdom that to me feels like it's applicable to life and to creativity, but also to like the mystery of existence. It's straight
Yes.
up like a spiritual text, you know? And um you also are someone I deeply admire because I feel like you walk your path as an artist um with such reverence, but also humor and freedom. I feel like you are so generous and you express yourself so beautifully. And maybe it's just my perception of you, but I sense very little self-consciousness around sharing your feelings and your expressions and really making art in whatever way is resonant to you at that moment. Is that true, Mallory? Is that how you experience yourself?
I think so. Thank you for
Mhm.
saying that. Yeah, I think I've always been very um even before I read The Artist's Way or knew about The Artist's Way, I think I was already kind of creating in accordance with some of the ideas that Julia Cameron um verbalizes and languages. Like I think for me art has always been in a way sort of a channeling, an experience of channeled creation. And so I guess there's always been that reverence which leads to like, of course I will share this because this is I'm just helping this come out and come into existence. And so yeah, there is a certain freedom in that. I don't usually attach fully to what I create. Meaning I see everything that I create as an offering. I think even before I had that language, I was engaging with art that way. And then when I found
Mm.
the book, well, when I first read The Artist's Way, I was very turned off by her language, and I didn't want to I didn't want to work through it. It was two things. I think the way that, and I know other people that I've introduced this book to who are maybe not as spiritual or like reading a lot of spiritual text were turned off by some of her um the language about God or creator.
Mm.
and also sort of the air of authority that she speaks with. But when I actually finally sat down and worked through the book the first time, it just blew my mind.
Hmm. What can you describe that experience of having your mind blown? Like, what about it felt significant to you?
I truly experienced what she describes about the universe collaborating with our
Mhm.
desires,
Mhm.
and that, and the one of the things that I struggle with as an artist and just a human is structure and regularity, right? But really, this book does sort of, it's one of those books that, or it's one of those things that you get what you put into it.
Mm.
And so when I've worked through it twice now, and then I'm working through it again with a friend right now, but it's been a totally different experience each time.
Yeah.
And but it also really always opens up opens me up to, I think she uses the phrase triggering synchronicity, right? It's
Mm.
an active way of triggering synchronicity, which then ultimately leads to enchantment, which is what I'm always sort of returning to and seeking, is a sense of enchantment.
Wow. Wow. I had not picked up on that piece you just mentioned about synchronicity because my relationship with it was insanely synchronous. Um, I found the artist's way during a time of I would I would call that period the dark night of the soul for me. One among many, but it was a pretty significant one. I think it was a spiritual crisis. It was a spiritual depression moment. Um, I had just released a singer-songwriter album I've been working on at that point for about 5 years, and I didn't like the result. I didn't like how I felt about it, and it was such a childhood dream for such a long time that that feeling was actually more devastating than anything. It was as if like I had lost faith in my own childhood. Or like the dream that I had been holding on to. It's like if this didn't even satisfy me, then what the fuck else is out there? Was kind
Right.
of how I was feeling. So I found this book and I was trying to remember Mallory, like how did I find The Artist's Way? I think it must have been um I think it may have been Elizabeth Gilbert because I was really into, I don't know if that's even true, but if I'm recalling correctly, I was listening to a lot of podcasts and her podcast on Big Magic, which at that point I actually hadn't read yet. Like I hadn't read The Big Magic, but I really loved her podcast, really loved her voice. And I think at some point she mentioned Julia Cameron, just kind of in passing,
Okay.
you
Hmm.
know? Because The Big Magic is to me kind of um like 2010s version of The Artist's Way, right? Just
Totally.
like, just like how like Rick Rubin's what is that? The Creative Act, is that right? Um is like today's The Artist's Way, right? But it
Yes.
does feel to me like every generation has their own version of The Artist's Way. And so I bought it and I um it's so interesting to hear your experience with it because I didn't experience that because I was so desperate at that moment. I
Okay.
was I was hanging on to I feel like her tone of certainty was actually really medicinal for me because everything else around me or inside of me felt like it was crumbling. So I just like I did everything she asked me to do. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. Um but the short version of the story is after doing the morning pages for maybe a couple months. I remember going through like two different notebooks. I um, had a dream where my grandmother told me to get a reading with an astrologer, which
Mhm.
was how I found Britain. crazily through Google search, like literally through a random Google search, saw her face, and I was like, this is it. Had a reading with her. We all laughed about the fact that she and I were born the same birthday, or like shared the same birthday, which was the same birthday as my grandma. And then we put it to rest. We were like, wow, the universe is crazy. And then I started learning from Britain. I think this was when she was creating those workbooks, like the early days of her like
Yeah.
prototyping the workbooks. And she was doing these meetups for the workbook. And somebody had also, like, somebody came in and we ended up talking about the artist way. And we started talking about Julia Cameron. And I
Amazing.
Googled it at that time, Mallory. And lo and behold, Julia Cameron was also born on March 4th. Insane.
Wait, I didn't realize that.
Yes. So Britton and I and Julia Cameron and my
Oh,
grandmother, we were all March 4th babies.
okay. That's
So this
that's
text is insane. Talking about synchronicity, that was my relationship with it.
that's I'm just processing that. That's amazing.
It's crazy, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I already knew about you and your grandmother and you in Britain, but I don't think I knew that about the artist way, about Julia Cameron.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I was shocked. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, I really see this text as like yeah, it's channeled, I think, in some
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Mm.
hmm
Sure.
Um,
I can't even remember when I first became aware of the artist way.
hmm.
And one of those things, someone mentioned it to me and then I bought it. Um, and then it sat on my shelf for a long time because it actually interestingly the things that turned me off about it when I first read it are it's quite the opposite now. Or actually it feels so even that you know the what word did you use? The not I said air of authority, but the way that she writes, right, is actually so inviting and important to me at this moment.
Hmm.
Even just yeah, the way that she connects creativity and spirituality is so I don't know. I mean, each time I read this book, it's offering something different, which is
Yeah.
also amazing. It's just so, like you said, you could turn to any page and find a morsel of wisdom that would, feed you for months. And
Yeah.
each time I work through it or read through it, I am noticing different things.
Mm.
It's so rich.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Um, shall we get into some of the quotes that you picked? And maybe we can kind of do this back and forth, and we'll just see where we land. How does that sound?
Yeah,
Cool.
sure.
Yeah. Um, you had mentioned to me in your email, so I'm just gonna maybe read it. But um, the first one you mentioned was this piece about the artist states. Um, and she said, you are
Yes.
likely to find yourself avoiding your artist states. Recognize this resistance as a fear of intimacy, self-intimacy. And just for people who don't know, basically the artist states are invitations to spend some time with yourself. Um, like all the details are kind of like evaporating from my mind here, but what I'm getting is like take yourself on a date, and let yourself like really have that experience, right, to yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
no, go for it, please.
I, well, I'm just really ready to talk about artist dates because
Yes.
I think they're so obviously morning pages, even if someone told me they weren't going to work through the artist way, like, oh, I don't have the time or commitment, I would say you okay, but you should do morning pages
Hmm.
if you can, right? Um, but so the morning pages and the artist dates work together because the morning pages, the intention is kind of to clear out and make space, and also to like identify problems and questions, concerns, etc., desires. And then the artist date is the companion to that, because on the artist date, you're, she says, filling the well.
Mm.
You are actively seeking inspiration, and that, and because she also talks about art as, working with images, right? Like that we need images in order to create. And so part of the intention of the artist state is just to acquire new images and new inspiration by, yeah, going to a museum, or going and sitting by the water somewhere, or going to a bookstore and finding a book, painting, something like that, where you're actively seeking to kind of fill your well of inspiration. But I bring it up because it kind of links to the section on workaholism, which is later in the book.
Mm.
Because one of the things I constantly struggle with is um making time. I think this book is really great for creating a structure and prioritizing creativity. I guess I was gonna say self-care. I think that's true too, right?
Yeah.
She emphasizes the importance of self-care.
Mhm.
And I bring that up because I always have trouble doing the artist dates.
Mm.
And it's always that even though I have trouble doing them in the sense that she describes them, but then sometimes I think, but I'm doing mini artist dates every day. So I don't really know, but it's interesting the resistance I often feel around like taking even a few hours, right, to
Yeah.
go and do something. It seems like an impossible task,
Yeah.
but that's my intention this time around, is playing with the possibility of actually doing that. And
Yeah.
I'm excited about that
Yeah.
because I think I've kind of half-heartedly done the artist dates.
Mm.
How about you?
Mhm. I had a really hard time doing the artist dates for sure. And it's so interesting to talk about this with you in this moment, Mallory, because I was just listening to a podcast episode by Peter Fury, and they were talking about inertia and about how when we are so used to running our energy a certain way, moving into a different way of being, uh, is, and now this is just my words around it, it's energetically expensive, right? It's hard to shift into a different way of being, which is, why a lot of people resist intentional change. People would rather stay the same in miserable situations because w- it's hard, and it takes a lot of energy to kind of shift into a different way of being. And to me, the artist dates does represent, like, it feels daunting. And I think part of what feels daunting about it is that it is about like clearing up your schedule, meeting the void, and then kind of lavishing yourself, lavishing your vessel with inspiration. And it's, um, yeah, I think it kind of disturbs, something about it disturbs kind of this homeostasis that we often attach to our sense of safety, right?
Yeah.
Because like it's really easy for our certain parts of our brains. I'm not a neuroscientist, but it's really easy for certain parts of our brains to equate sameness with safety, you know?
Yes.
hmm And I think
Yep.
the artist states challenge that notion. hmm What's your take on, or did you have any questions?
Well, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, I also think that there are, at least for me, sometimes, sometimes is the wrong word. I think my struggles with, I think that's true. I think also, like, there have been times where I've been, you know, just totally burnt out
Mm.
from work. And you're absolutely right. I think those are those moments, especially in those moments, right? There is a pattern of safety seeking, right? In ways that
Mm,
are really needed. And I also think that there's an issue around self-worth, that this book addresses. I don't know if she really uses those words specifically, but I know that it always comes up for me
mm,
um, when I work through this and when I read through this, and just the she asks you to commit to what she says excellent self-care,
mm,
which I think is a really tricky topic for a lot of people, because a lot of people are, and myself included, just working a lot. And it's it's really, really medicinal for me to return again and again to this text, which contains such a reminder that
yeah.
actually we need and we are worthy, like I am worthy of um taking time to just read a book in the park, or um a lot of mine, I even just like going outside without a plan, like taking a walk, even just little things. Those are such worthwhile things, and I am worthy of those. I think this book
Mm,
is really helpful in internalizing that.
yeah.
Even though I'm still struggling with that aspect of the book for sure. I mean, that's the artist dates is the hardest part for me.
Mhm, mhm.
I'm curious if you've had like, what the question I had was, what would you describe as, are there any memorable artist dates that you've gone on?
Mm. One was taking myself to the carousel in um the middle of Central Park. There's this carousel, and it's that one really freaked me out because I was like, I know I had to do it. I kept seeing this carousel also in my mind, right? And I was so self-conscious. I was like, I'm gonna look so crazy. And so I went on a pretty quiet day, and I was pretty much the only person there. And it was really profound, Mallory. I met this younger part of myself,
Hmm.
like the younger version of me, and I was kind of confronted by how serious they were. Like this younger part of me was like very serious, and like already took life very seriously. And yeah, it was confronting. And I don't think that a lot of people like medicine. We always talk about medicine in like the kind of spiritual or like healing
Huh?
world, but like taking medicines is like, I mean, it's like yuck. Remember when you were a little kid and you had to take your medicine, you're like, this sucks. Like, what are
Yes.
you doing? Like, you're literally poisoning me, you know? Um, so yeah, it was hard. And I also have many artist dates at the Met, but they usually are a lot less dramatic.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you
What
were,
about you?
well, I think the one that stands out in my mind is just, um, oh, it makes me a little sad because this cafe has closed, but there
Mm,
used to be a cafe that it's actually very near to my house, but I loved the interior. They just had such a, I don't know, eclectic interior with all of these like cacti when you walked in, and like and they had a outdoor patio. It was a very pleasant space to go to, and I would meet up there with a friend of mine who's one of my artist friends, and we would get coffee there frequently and talk about writing and spirituality. And so I remember sometimes going there and just sitting there and sketching. And to me, sketching is like this ultimate artist state activity because I don't, even though I've always enjoyed drawing and sketching and coloring and painting, I don't feel the same way about it as I do about writing, where when I
Mm.
write, I'm very much writing for an audience or to share, right? Not the morning pages, but like I feel a certain way about my writing as
Mm.
what like I identify as a writer, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like sketching, it's like who cares, whatever, you know? Like it could just be free and fun. And I
Yeah.
there was just one particular day where I did that and I sat there for quite a long time and it shifted from day to night while I was sitting there. And I have a very sensory memory of the way the light changed and the view out the window. Yeah, so I think very simple things for me. But also what you were describing felt very Capricorn fifth house.
Yeah.
Like actually one of the quotes I found. Can I read one?
Yes,
I
please.
remember I actually noted in my book, this feels very Capricorn fifth house to me. She says it's when she's talking about shadow artists,
Mm.
which is that's another really tricky one because I feel like she is calling me out incredibly and saying that a lot of artists, like she even says, some shadow artists become who dream of being storytellers become therapists
Mm.
instead.
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
but I do think like for me, I live in the in between of these ideas, but I remember reading that and feeling a little, you know, I had a reaction to that.
Yeah.
Uh, but she writes, in order to move from the realm of shadows into the light of creativity, shadow artists must learn to take themselves seriously. With gentle, deliberate effort, they must nurture their artist child. Creativity is play, but for shadow artists, learning to allow themselves to play is hard work.
Yep. Yep. I definitely agree with that. I was even thinking about this in relation to Saturn and Aries. Currently, as we're recording this conversation, Saturn just moved into Aries this time around. And I was thinking about how Saturn and Aries to me really does feel like the invitation to recognize that the only way to age gracefully is to awaken your inner child. If
Mm,
you look at, oh, let me just put it this way. Every old person I know that I deeply respect are very childlike,
yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
Otherwise, you just get bitter. You just get dry and bitter and angry at the world. Because, like, as you accrue more years and more experience, what else is there to do? You know?
Right.
What
Right.
else is there to do but be bitter, right? So I have found, yeah, I feel like I'm kind of straying away from the point here, but yeah, would you say more about what you wanted to say about that shadow artist um quote that you brought up?
Oh, just, I mean, I totally love what you're saying right now. And it does feel really relevant to me because
Mm.
there's also like that I've thought about that for a while, like sort of the design, right? This innate design of human development where and I think maybe I read something one time about that, how getting into older age, and like late elder years, you often see a return of behaviors that mirror childhood, right? And
Yeah.
it feels like a kind of beautiful aspect of design. But yeah, I think just, you know, this book is going to be hard it's going to be hard to throw oneself into this book if you struggle with workaholism and struggle to play. And
Yeah.
that's also me, even though
Mm.
play is so central to my life, but actually I need structures and systems and words and inspiration like this in order to be that way, right?
Mhm.
And there have been times in my life where I was not playful and I was not creating. I mean, I think we are always, you know, there's an aspect to creativity that, and this is what she's getting into, is that it's not um fully up to us.
Hmm.
There are other processes at work, but in terms
Yeah.
of intentionally being intentionally creative and intentionally playful, yeah, uh it's nice to have a structure like this,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be difficult to adhere to that structure for
Yeah.
various reasons.
Right. Right. You
And
have
I also
also, go ahead.
serious I have a very serious inner child as well, which we talked about.
Yeah. 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 And this is making me think about seriousness and how that factors into playing. Like it does make me question if seriousness is antithetical to playing or not. I don't know. I feel like there's the answer to that is probably mutable, and changing. But this other passage also really stuck out at me from this is you sent me this passage. If people are too busy to write morning pages or too busy to take an artist date, they are probably too busy to hear the voice of authentic creative urges.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, I I really still to this day struggle with this one because
Mm,
it's like, yeah, if someone did say to me, if they might describe, a lot of people are working really hard all the time. Like they're working long hours, and maybe they're also parents, or caregiving in other ways. And um I balance, like I always want to balance, and I never want to wash over that reality, right? I never
yeah.
want to, um I can't conjure the word, but bypass, right? Like bypass people's reality of the impact of, labor and the way that we work and live in the world. And I have to say that I've also been in positions where I it truly was my reality as I saw it was I don't have time
Mm,
for creativity. But when I actually excavated moments, I mean, she even talks about tidbits, I think is the word she uses, like finding tidbits. Or like I always end up quoting the poet C.A. Conrad, who also writes about creativity and art. And their agenda is to get everyone more creative and making art. And they have said in interviews, I think, or written somewhere, like, if you don't have time to sit down and write a poem at home or in the morning or whatever, do it on your smoke break.
mm,
Like
mhm,
like micro moments, finding micro moments to be inspired and to connect and to meet that inner artist, inner child. And I think the possibility of that is so powerful.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, which passages did I pick?
I'm
Let's take a
curious too.
look. So this is the first one. I literally just opened my text, um,
You were
and
doing
then
some biblical
I
here.
was doing some bibliomancy, yeah. And I this morning I was like, whoa, this is really resonant. So I'm just gonna read from this. It says, this is page 182. Creativity is a spiritual practice. It is not something that can be perfected, finished, and set aside. It is my experience that we reach plateaus of creative attainment only to have a certain restlessness set in. Yes, we are successful. Yes, we have made it, but dot dot dot. In other words, just when we get there, there disappears. Dissatisfied with our accomplishments, however lofty, we are once again confronted with our creative self and its hungers. The questions we have just laid to rest now rears their head again. What are we going to do now? As artists, we are spiritual sharks. The ruthless truth is that if we don't keep moving, we sink to the bottom and die. The choice is very simple. We can insist on resting on our laurels, or we can begin anew. The stringent requirement of a sustained creative life is the humility to start again, to begin anew.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that passage because I think it's yeah, it's so real and it does feel really connected to what we were just talking about. Like,
Mm,
um, and it makes me think of so, how many times have you had a session with someone who's like, just I feel like I feel blocked or and I don't know what I want, and that's
mm,
frustrating. I have no direction. And I love the way she writes that because she's basically laying out the cyclical viewpoint,
mhm.
right? That's that's natural and to be expected.
Yeah.
That that we will have these moments of, like for me, when I'm in a creative zone or creating regularly, which always happens when I regularly do morning pages.
Mm,
So anyone who has not tried doing morning pages diligently every day should really give it a try because it is miraculous. Um, but like I experience those creative periods of time, like really, just like the juicy, like everything's flowing so well. It's like that's the height of pleasure to me.
mm,
And then, but that inevitably will ebb, right? And wane. And I often actually feel a lot of grief in those
mm,
times. I tend to feel a
mhm,
lot of grief when like my creative energy rises and I'm channeling a lot and I'm making a lot, and then suddenly it's like nothing,
mm.
and that's, I mean, again, she's really dramatic in how she writes it, right? Like we
She
fall to the
is.
ocean floor and die. It's like, wow, that's a lot, Julia, but it is kind of like we kind of have to be birthed again, each
Yeah.
time, which is
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Oh, this is making me think of I really love watching videos of whale falls actually. Um
Oh,
Whale fall. Like
you
when a whale dies, right? It essentially they sink to the bottom of the ocean and they start feeding the whole ecosystem of the ocean. And
know.
the cycle you were just talking about, first of all, makes me think about the Wheel of Fortune in the tarot. Um, and to me, just like success, creative expression, at least in my own experience, has also felt like it has its season. Like sometimes I am really in winter, everything's dead, and I'm really kind of tending to the process of letting the soil rest. And then there are times when it's summer and I can't even keep up, you know,
Yes.
with everything. And
Hey.
yeah, essentially, the whole thing that always makes me feel so excited about the whale fall phenomenon is that whales, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, live for about like 70 to 80 years. And then their bodies also decompose for about 70 to 80 years. So yes, they're throughout the 70, 80 years when they were alive, they were feeding on the ecosystem of the ocean. And then their death gave back to the ecosystem because the whole ocean then started feeding on them, right? From like all the way from the, I don't know, little planktons, to like the fish. And like at first, the one that came are like the sharks, right? Like the big predators. And then gradually, what is left are these smaller creatures like feeding on the bones. So this is a really long process, but there is this, it's, I think, such a beautiful, visceral, um, metaphor for like how creativity has its cyclicality, you know? And um yeah, I don't know where I'm really going with that, but I do feel like when I first approached this text, my own relationship with creativity in hindsight was pretty extractive. Like I wanted my creativity to be an endless summer. And I
Yeah.
also wanted my creativity to give me back something. It's like, oh, I practice piano. I better be praised for it, you know? Like I better be known for it. And it's so interesting to me reading this passage now because I have such a different relationship to it. I totally know what she meant by kind of the hunger, right? Like the constant hunger. And also, I think in my own path, it's been really instructive to question that hunger and
Yeah.
actually to be with the sense of void that I think you were also speaking to, Mallory, when you were talking about the artist states a little bit, right? Like to me, actually being with these experiences of what I'm calling like divine creative dissatisfaction is a really valuable site of spiritual empowerment, actually.
Yes.
You know, and in my own path as a mystic, I've had to learn to surrender to these moments of like, yeah, I'm doing my morning pages, I'm practicing, and yet nothing's coming up. You know, like how do we be with those moments? Yeah.
It's like one time you and I were talking about tarot, and we
Mm.
were talking about how, like, um, ex accepting and being with the fact that sometimes you pull a tarot, like if you're doing your daily tarot draw, and sometimes you pull a card and there's nothing.
Yeah.
And like there's nothing you can, it's not, it's not speaking in an accessible way, or it doesn't have anything like that image or that card, the archetype doesn't make sense to you or say anything clear. And that sometimes that's like the even just learning to be in that moment is so useful, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That it also it's Julia Cameron, one of the things I wrote down, I made like a mind map when I was reviewing the book. I made a mind map of concepts, and
Wow.
one of
I wish I wish listeners could see this because this is epic.
I have
Sorry,
this
it's a
doc.
podcast.
I ran out
I
of
feel bad
room.
for you all.
Yes, very simple. But she one of the things I wrote down was think mystery, not mastery.
Mm. Mm.
I think in a way what she is doing is helping us embrace not knowing. Not knowing and not like not understanding. And that actually to do this book is not to learn how to be an artist who, I don't even the point is not even like, oh, now I can not even necessarily like now I'm ready to write this novel and put it out into the world,
Yeah.
whatever. It's more, there's just a lot of, it's a very holistic and profound approach. And I think what you said about creative seasons is really important, like
Yeah.
really, really important to honor, um, what our creative winter, spring, fall, summer, I don't know why I said those out of order. What those look and feel like and how to be in them rather than resisting them.
Hmm. Yeah.
She always said, like rest on the page with the morning pages. Come and rest on the page, or
Yeah.
any in the morning pages can hold anything because even if you're frustrated that, oh, I don't know what to write about, write that. I
Yeah.
don't know what to write and I'm frustrated. I'm feeling frustrated that I don't know what to write, etc.
Yeah. 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 Um, this is making me think of another quote. This is kind of longer, but that I was marking, which was in the second appendix. When I opened to this, I was like, really the appendix? But then I started reading this and I was like, whoa. Um, she was talking about her own artistic journey, which, for those who are not familiar, Julia Cameron ended up living a very, uh, how should we say this? Eclectic creative journey. You know,
Mhm.
she didn't write The Artist's Way and then just become like a self-help guru, which she could have, because, this text is amazing and she could have just done that at infinitum. She went on to write a few more of these kinds of books, but she also wrote novels. She wrote short stories. I think she wrote like scripts and like have, her plays like performed. But on page 230, is it any wonder I often felt dazed and confused, overwhelmed by the velocity of people and events? It is one of the ironies of a celebrated writer's life that our natural inclination to sit alone behind a desk becomes more and more difficult to pursue. My own morning pages were an invaluable continuing source of guidance, as you said, Mallory. I was told both to seek solitude and to reach for the companionship of other artists who believed, as I did, that we were always led both by the great creator and by those who have gone before us, treading their artist's way and loving the same art forms we do. Higher powers stand ready to help us if we ask. We must remain ready to ask, open minded enough to be led, and willing to believe despite our bouts of disbelief. Creativity is an act of faith, and we must be faithful to that faith, willing to share it to help others and to be helped in return. Outside my window, out over the Hudson, a very large bird is soaring. I have seen this bird for days now, sailing on the fierce winds that are the slipstream around this island. It's too large to be a hawk. It's not shaped like a gull. The Hudson Valley is full of eagles higher up. I cannot believe this is one, but it seems to know exactly what it is. Eagle. It doesn't tell its name. It wears it. Maybe as artists, we are such birds, mistaken by ourselves and others for something else, riding the current of our dreams, hunting in the canyons of commerce for something we have seen from higher up. For artists, a wing and a prayer is routine operating procedure. We must trust our process, look beyond results. Artists throughout the centuries have spoken of inspiration, confiding that God spoke to them or angels did. In our age, such notions of art as a spiritual experience are seldom mentioned, and yet the central experience of creativity is mystical. Opening our souls to what must be made, we meet our maker.
Wow.
I was holding back tears. That's amazing.
What is it about that passage that I feel like that passage contains her whole philosophy
Yeah, yeah.
in a conveyed in a beautiful way. Like what does that spark for you reading that?
Mm. I think something I've always struggled with is trying to figure out, one, if I'm even an artist or not, and two, what kind of an artist am I? You know? Like, am I a
Wow.
musician or am I a songwriter? Like, blah, blah. And like, we live in a world that, unfortunately, I think this is really one of the great tragedies of our beautiful and crazy civilization is we are so obsessed with these labels and we
Yes.
drink our own Kool-Aids, you know? And I think what really struck me about that passage is what she was saying about the eagle. Like the eagle was eagling, right? The eagle
Yes.
wasn't busy like, what kind of eagle am I? You know, and
Yeah.
for whatever reason, tragically, or maybe there's of course there's a reason for it. But to me, this seems tragic that we as humans are, we have these really beautiful, gorgeous, complex minds that questions ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Hmm. It blows my mind that you question whether you're an artist. I'm just processing that information. Not only because to me you so clearly are, like, in just in terms that other people would agree with,
Mm,
but also by definition, by Julia Cameron's definition, you know, everyone is,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I hear what you're saying, that that's been a story that you've been kind of carrying, and I guess, would you say dismantling, trying to dismantle that self-doubt?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and for me, I think the conditions that my specific brand of ego put over it is this idea of, is anybody going to get it? Like,
Right.
if it's like that whole saying of like, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, did it even happen, right? Um, but often to me, there is this need to be seen and to be validated in my artistry that feels very challenging, and in some ways um can feel from a certain vantage point to be in opposition with the nature of creativity, which is about kind of opening up to that stream, right? And being touched by that stream. Um, yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
You say that is something, this might be hard to answer because you may not know, but I'm curious if that is a theme that you've explored in your morning pages.
yeah, yeah, I have. And I think where I'm landing around that is this is something that anybody who's a performer, I think, deals with, because there is an element of creativity. Like, if you think about it, if you are a writer, I guess there's a way in which a writer could also be contorted into feeling like they need to perform, right? But there's like a lag between that creation process and being received by the audience that I think for performers doesn't exist, right? And so what I've had to unravel are years and years of training and experience of being a creative being, creating it while being watched, right? And
Yeah.
kind of the terror that is held in the body when you're not sure what's happening. Like, you inevitably, because you're human, you will make mistakes on stage, and
Yeah.
everybody will watch you make mistakes. Sometimes they don't know that you're making a mistake, but you're still making a mistake, and that experience, right, of feeling that terror in the body is extremely real.
Yes. As a stage performer, actor, I definitely, but as you were describing that, I felt excitement. Like, it gets into like risk,
Mm,
I think she also writes about risk, and
yeah.
there's a that to me, performing on stage is high risk, high reward
Mm,
creatively. Like, I've definitely, ooh, I have had some moments where I really messed up on stage,
mm,
totally blanked, and it was horrible. But then on alternatively, I've had moments where I don't think I think I've also described to you, you know, how much I associate, like, I connect my experience of learning to sort of listen and speak to and feel um what's unseen, and maybe even just like eroticism and that raw creative force. Like, I connect that to that memory of the first play I ever acted in,
mm,
um, when I was 9 years old, and it
mhm,
was an outdoor Shakespeare production of Richard III,
mm,
and like, it was ecstatic.
mhm,
I had never felt anything like that.
mm,
Like, it was nighttime, so there were crickets, and there were crickets chirping all around. The audience was sitting on this hill,
mm,
and the light. I remember just the buzz of the lights. Like,
mhm,
I'll never. It's just such a. I will never forget the high that
mm,
I felt then, and yeah, the moments where I messed up are also live in me on a very in a very sensory way. So It's like there's something to that, I think, like the taking the risk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's the payoff of risking that kind of being a performer is very vulnerable in a way that being a writer, for example, or I mean, I guess I'm going to say it differently. I both write and perform, and performing feels vulnerable in a way that writing doesn't.
Yeah, I think
Because
it's a different, Mhm. Right. It's a different kind of vulnerability because um to me the vulnerability of writing, like for example, like songwriting or even like writing an email, that you're sending to your list, it's vulnerable in a different way because you're on your own, and that I think brings its own kind of terror, actually. It's like a specific brand of terror, like being all alone with just the empty page or like being all alone with the empty canvas, right? Is a different kind of terror than everybody watching you,
yes,
and
totally.
all eyes on you and you don't even know because like people, the audience is not always with you. That's something I've been contemplating on actually in my longer hiatus from like public performance. I realized that the audience is not always with you. Like even as an audience, like a lot of times I come to concerts and I was just having a bad day. I was just fighting with my partner. I had a problem on the subway, right? That my mind or part of my consciousness is somewhere else. And I think one of the challenges that the performer can face is in that moment feeling that energetic absence of the audience's whole attention and believing that it's something that they're doing, you know?
Yes.
That's a very, I think that to me is like where the vulnerability is because you will feel that some of the audience, a certain part of the audience is completely with you. Another segment is like testing you or like kind of having this energy of like, bring it on, prove it to me. And then another part is just not even there, and that energetic discrepancy, that lack of coherence, I think can make it so difficult, especially if you orient towards performance as like, here's the thing I've rehearsed and let me play it perfectly, right? Yeah.
That feeling is so painful. Every
Yeah.
every main stage play I've ever been involved in, either as an actor or I'm also thinking of the last main stage show I did. I stage managed and it was equally painful for me. There's always like at least one performance, usually a matinee, where the audience is not with you, and it is so, yeah, it's just painful. It's it hurts. It hurts to do that. It's like you just want to get it over with.
Yeah.
And I always feel it's really interesting because I feel so resentful towards I've felt so resentful towards those people, that like, why aren't you with us, right?
Yeah.
I think like that gets into, I don't know, I'm even thinking about how this can apply to um, so probably a lot of people listening like have an Instagram and they're trying to like create, you
Mm.
know, content to introduce who they are and connect with audience. And I think it plays out a lot in that space too. There's a
Yeah.
very similar like um the vulnerability of showing up, for example, and doing like an Instagram live. I was freaked out by that for years, the idea
Yeah.
of doing that.
Yeah.
I think you said to me once, like, you can do a live and save it, and then you can just delete it.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
I was like, thank you, Jonathan. Um, Yeah. But yeah, I think like the Julia also writes about that in the book. Like she's kind of like I think allowing us to explore our fear around like even, for a lot of people. I think maybe myself included, right? Like there's a fear of fully diving into creativity or even being like um sharing our creativity because we can't control the reaction. Like she writes a lot about criticism and how to deal with criticism, which I find really helpful. Criticism, which is very linked to shame and um I don't know. I really think this is a great program
Mm.
for facing those fears.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, Mallory, are you able to identify like a specific fear, or is a specific fear coming to mind when you think about, this book and the practices that she prescribed that that's helped you, you know, that's been assisted by this practice and this relationship with this text?
Oh, a specific fear that has been, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm looking at my mind map for
Mm,
sparks. I think I often am afraid to have faith in possibility.
mm,
I think that, and I also think that it's not just that I carry, that very human, like what you were talking about, this human self-doubt, but I also, I think I currently have a lot of fear around expressing joy and enthusiasm. And I think people, a lot of people that I'm in relationship with, I think it's similar right now because
mm,
there's a there's a lot of dread and anger and just a lot of harm that exists in the world. And so it's I think one of the fears I've carried is like being open about my enthusiasm, being open about my joy and delight, even though I do that, but it terrifies me.
yeah.
But doing that has always been a wonderful thing. Because not only is that like I'm just so aware of the fact that like that delight and mirth and like childlike and joy and playfulness that those are again that's not just me desiring that. I think that that's like spirit and creator and my guides and however whatever language we can use, and I've used a lot of different words across many years, but uh that that's a mutual desire.
Mm,
Like the
mhm,
desire is mutual. The
yeah.
that like I think she even I don't know, I didn't write down this quote, but like oh I did. It's her section on enthusiasm. I might have made a note.
Yes,
um
I have it here.
Oh, is it one of the ones I sent? Okay.
Hmm. Can I read
What
it?
did, yes.
Over any extended period of time, being an artist requires enthusiasm more than discipline. Enthusiasm is not an emotional state, it is a spiritual commitment, a loving surrender to our creative process, a loving recognition of all the creativity around us. Our inner artist can be enticed to work by treating work as play.
Yes.
Ah, I love this.
What do you want to say?
I love this. I feel very excited by it because I think to me, when she's talking about enthusiasm, I don't know if that's the word I would use. Actually, the word I would use is ecstasy. And this actually
Yeah.
came up in a session earlier. because I was doing an intuitive reading for someone and they mentioned uh, Joan of Arc and
Mm.
how Joan of Arc, at the end of her life, was not experiencing pain for being burnt at the stake, and was in this ecstatic union with the divine. And to me, there's something so profound about that because, um, here's again the word of mystery and mastery. To me, spiritual mastery is not about leaving the body, it's about recognizing that the body is a temporal experience
Mm.
and that it coexists with this other plane. And that's kind of what she's speaking to here as well. It's like, um, it's making me think of my current favorite practice from Thich Nhat Hanh, which he didn't even prescribe as a practice, but I was reading his book. Um, it's gonna drive me nuts, so I'm gonna look it up. I forgot the title of this book. Awakening of the Heart. Yes. And in it, there was one small sentence where he was talking about what conditions are you placing on joy and happiness? And this is one of those very Thich Nhat Hanh transmission because this was in the context of him talking about how joy and happiness is actually our state. Like it's
Yes.
just who we are always, right?
Yes.
And like I don't think anybody I know walk around this earth being such a magnificent embodiment of that as Thich Nhat Hanh. Like he literally is just like smiling Zen Buddhist master, like he's just always so sweet, in his and he can say the most profound things, but just be very sweet about it, because I think he's so in touch with that particular truth, right? And so I've been doing this practice of every morning asking myself, what conditions am I placing on joy and happiness?
Mm.
And it is crazy, Mallory. The list goes on. It never
Like what?
ends.
Can you give some examples?
Yeah, actually, I can give you some really real examples from my journal right here if you want. Today, it was emotional regulation.
Ah.
There is a belief that I hold that, oh, in order to be joyful and happy, I have to be emotionally regulated. Really? This was from yesterday. Um, Having an answer when actually taking the test without knowing the answer was where the fun is.
Ooh.
Another,
Yes.
the day before that, feeling good in my body. I can feel like shit and apply joy through curiosity.
Mm.
Another one, not making mistakes. That's one I know very well. Another one, things staying the same, people staying the same.
Mm.
It just keeps going. This is a
Love
living
with that
list.
last one.
Yeah, because and a favorite one that came up a few days ago was I put this condition on my joy and happiness around that somehow the dissolution of oppressive structures need to be traumatic.
Mm. Hmm.
That who says? Who says? Maybe it won't be, you know? Um, what was that? The Berlin Wall fell just like that. It's happened before in history that like momentous things happen with, in a way that actually feels exhilarating at the moment, and yeah, to me, the enthusiasm that she was speaking to is this commitment to life that I think is really um actually like an innate state that all of us can tap into. Mhm.
Uh, it so makes me think about trees, which I've talked about with you before, how like the trees, certain trees in my life and like neighborhood and ecosystem really teach me about this. Um, ginkgo and cherry blossoms, because there's something, especially like if you look at the cherry blossoms, right? they're like there's another writer, I can't remember who writes. I want to say maybe this I think it's not unique to one writer, but looking at like a flower, right? A flower that blooms and how and the if you see a cherry blossom tree in bloom, it is so exuberant. It's so like I think we as humans cannot see that and feel a rush of joy or admiration or wonder like wow, this is so beautiful. And it's also so short-lived. It
Yeah.
happens, they bloom, and then the blossoms drop. And
Yeah.
it's just like you were, the quote that you read about the eagle. That tree doesn't that tree does not have any doubts about this process. But I think that tree is taking I think there's like a joy in that. Like, you can tell me I'm wrong, but you cannot tell me that that tree is not joyful in that moment.
Yeah.
It's too beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was thinking when about your question, what conditions am I placing on joy and happiness? For me, one of them is this idea that other people need to be joyful and happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
still don't know how to sort of like navigate that one, except
Mm.
that I relate to my creativity is also that's also my work as a reader and a therapist and also a creative person and artist. And that actually that's an offering, right? That
Yeah.
when I am deeply keyed into my own joy and happiness, then that comes out and that expresses in a way that sparks and alights joy and happiness in others, and that it's all relational anyway.
Yeah.
But there's like the block I have sometimes is sort of like, again, it gets into that like self-worth again. Who are you to be?
Mm.
Who are you to be so joyful and, you know, um, uh, audaciously uh, whimsical or mirthful, right? In this.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That question comes up for me a lot. And I also ask myself, who am I not to be? You know,
Love it.
if that is what wants to come through me at any given moment. Um, yeah. I want to land us in the passage that you marked or the section that you marked immediately, Mallory, upon me sending you this email. You said you wanted to talk about attention in week two, which in my copy, maybe also your copy, page 52 to 56. Um, do you want to read it? Or do you want to read some parts of it?
Yeah, I made some notes.
Yeah.
I think that to me, yeah, page 52 to 56 is the most profound and often returned to section. And it is the section that I would like if I had two takeaways that I would give to people who are like, I can't do the artist way. I don't have time, whatever. I would say, well, this will help with that. But with that framework of mind. But I would say it's like morning pages and the section on attention.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I wrote, these are some of the quotes that I pulled. Attention is a way to connect and survive. The quality of life is in proportion always to the capacity for delight. The capacity for delight is the gift of paying attention. The reward for attention is always healing. More than anything else, attention is an act of connection. And then the last note that I made was, and this one is like feels very relevant for me right now, because not only because of sort of like the collective grief that I've been experiencing and choosing to feel, but also like personal grief that
Mm,
I've been moving through in the past few months.
mm,
Um, she wrote, pain is what it took to teach me to pay attention.
mm,
In times of pain, when the future is too terrifying to contemplate and the past too painful to remember, I have learned to pay attention to right now. The precise moment I was in was always the only safe place for me. Each moment taken alone was always bearable. In the exact now, we are all always all right.
mm.
In the exact now.
Yeah.
I think that so this book really, really helped me understand what attention means and all and the importance of attention,
Yeah.
right? That what we calibrate our senses to, um what we notice, what we observe, what we document, even like the power of the affirmations in this book, like that's the affirmations are also the other really, really powerful tool that I've taken from this program. And I'm really curious what you have to say about the reward for attention is always healing.
Hmm.
That one really like lands in me right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I also have resistances to it.
I know that to be true, Mallory. I have experienced it when I am in formal healing sessions with people, both receiving and giving. I have received that when, at the exact moment of being so distraught, I had this, appointment that I had made months ago with a friend who were able to just kind of really sit with me, like fully be with me, and in a way, didn't really do anything, just co-regulated with me, you know? Um, and I've also experienced it in myself, where I was in the illusion that I was lost for, I don't know, what sometimes is days, sometimes hours. Not proud to say, sometimes years. Um, and then there's just a moment of recognizing, of paying attention. Yesterday, actually, I had this moment where a mentor of mine asked me, we were using the life cycle of the butterfly to talk about the experience of spiritual transformation. And they asked me, where are you in the cycle? And I answered in the caterpillar phase, which was true, but something about I knew there was something else behind it. And I realized that what was holding me back, I wasn't like in that caterpillar phase where the caterpillar is like completely dissolving. I'm actually like in the phase where like the butterfly is already formed and I'm just like holding on to like my tiny little case, Like my tiny little chrysalis that has no energy anymore. And I was asking myself why. And then I looked at my calendar for today and I had two other meetings other than this one. Um, on my calendar, and there was this feeling of dread in my body where I was like, oh no, this is going to be a full day.
Mm.
And then I actually paid attention to what these meetings are. One was a reading I was doing that was for a person that their friend had gifted them this reading. And it made me think about like all the other times that I've gifted readings or that um I've been given readings so generously by people. And then the other one was to meet with a mentor who is really like, in my opinion, the best of the best. Like
Mm.
I always feel amazing after meeting with this person. And then the other one was with you, talking about one of the most life-changing texts I've ever encountered with one of my favorite human beings on earth. It's like, what the fuck are you complaining about, Jonathan? And it's like, really, like
Yeah.
I heard it in that rough, Carolyn May's voice of like, why are you being an entitled little bitch? And I say that with a lot of love. And it woke me up, right? The experience of waking up is about paying attention, I think.
Yes.
You wake up to not just this story that you have about your life, but the actual unfolding of your life, which is a fucking miracle.
Yes.
What else is there? What else is there? Like, what do we want? Like money? A functioning government? Like, what else do we want? We're all gonna die. So
Mhm.
that's my soapbox.
Mm, yes. I'm letting your energy settle. Like I'm like um vibing. I'm vibing hard with that. Um, I think I definitely, yeah, I practice that somewhat regularly,
Yeah.
um, especially on days where, you know, I wear a lot of professional hats, and
Hmm.
so I will, go from like having a session, doing a therapy session, to then like I'll go and teach children in the afternoon, and then I come back, I have another therapy session. I'm like, what the fuck? And just a lot. And usually I'll feel like I don't want to go and do the teaching, right? Even though that's like my teaching work is such a pillar for me financially. It's just I can
Mm.
always rely on that.
Yeah.
And but then like I often remind myself, like when I think about it, like I will do exactly what you're describing, and it is thanks to this book. It's thanks to this idea of attention, and also like delight and love, right? Like like showing up, paying attention is not just an act of healing. I mean, I don't think it what does she say? The reward is healing.
Mhm.
The spirit of attention to me is love and admiration, right? And like wonder. And so sometimes like if I go into my teaching, like a shift, and it's just, it's like not a long time, it's a few hours, like 4 at most, but I try to prime myself by going in and remembering like what a gift it is that I get to spend time with these some, and I've been teaching the same set of children now for almost 2 years. So I've seen them like there's something so special about being with children and watching them grow, and
Mm.
also the way that they think about life is so it's just wonders to me. The things they say, I'm always astonished and surprised and deeply amused by what they do and what they say. And yeah, I think giving that, if I'm really burnt out and stressed, then I might enter that part of my day with a lot of resentment or
Yeah.
um you know frustration, or just like I don't want to do this, right?
Mhm.
Resist. But really, it is possible to calibrate our attention to, I guess, as she says, right? The now, the exact now. Like what is happening here, what might happen, what might surprise you. And whenever I enter anything with the idea, with the question, like what's gonna happen? Can I be surprised or delighted? I always am, hands
Yes.
down.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
also triggering. That's triggering synchronicity. It's triggering because deeply, deeply, uh, like magic is a conversation, and all of our co-conspirators. I just realized that word contains spirit. like co-conspirators, and I mean that with capital S spirit, want us to be courting them and delighting in them and delighting them. And so that it always pays off.
Yeah. Yeah. There was this one passage right before, or these two sentences right before the one you picked, which was you picked attention is a way to connect and survive. And the two sentences before that really hit me like a brick when I read it this morning. One of the great misconceptions about the artistic life is that it entails great swaths of aimlessness. The truth is that a creative life involves great swaths of attention.
Mm, mhm,
That was like, like that hit me like a brick because um, even, to me, it's no coincidence that this book personally came to my life when I was experiencing, kind of the dark night of the soul, because that really is also um, the great chapter of examination, you know? And it's like what's gotten me to that point was, and this is to kind of tie it full circle, um, around what you brought around workaholism, Mallory, earlier in the conversation. I think a lot about why that's a problem because I don't think the problem is the work itself. I think the problem is maybe our relationship to it or like this belief that we will not survive without work or we will not survive if we don't continue this momentum, right? And I think attention is the one practice that or the one virtue that shifts us out of this constant like be it's like when we're in that workaholic cycle we're literally being run, right? Like something else is running us and we don't know how to stop. And I think attention breaks the cycle.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's a tricky one. I think I am working through some of this right now in my current um like journey with the artist way.
Mm,
I will say the artist way helped me to reconstruct my work life in a way that was that honored my desires. And now I'm back there again where I'm like, well, actually now like this is the thing I desire. And yeah, I deeply have faith in this process, even while I also have like it when you said that about like I don't know if I'll survive, that feels very real to me.
mm,
Just when I think about my finances and the reality of my financial obligations and
mm,
comparing that to like income, it's but that does not that the reality currently of like income versus expense does not preclude me from uh possibility and also from building a new relationship with work. And I think what you're for me, you're so right that I love all the work I do, actually.
mm,
Grateful.
yeah.
I'm so grateful that I get to do the kinds of things that I do because they're all very creative and people oriented and I can really be my full self
Mm,
in all work that I do, which is a gift. Um and yeah, I think this text has really helped me to connect with what's really beautiful in each moment.
mm,
It's not just the way she languages that, which for me was a revelation when I first read it, but also coming back again and again um to the morning pages, to the affirmations, to uh like verbalizing, languaging, and then playing with
Mm.
delight and love.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's been life-changing for me.
Yeah. Mm.
And I wanted to share, I think like what we're talking about attention makes me think about like my favorite like literary ancestor and poet guide is Mary Oliver and like you know her instructions on living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it.
Mm. Mhm.
I think Julia Cameron is also exploring that process and that and being astonished is this that's a simple statement, but it's a I think a profound concept and experience.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been a true delight, Mallory. Thank you so much. I'm curious if there's anything you want to say or anything else we haven't talked about that you feel must go on the record, and also any any ways that you would like to encourage people to work with you.
Yeah, I think I feel really complete in our conversation about the artist way.
Mm.
I feel like I hope that people who have um known about this book know what it is but haven't picked it up and haven't tried working through it. I encourage you to try. I think that this is such an important um source of creative, generative, love inducing energy.
Mhm.
And in terms of working with me, yeah, I am currently available for one-on-one work. I offer intuitive tarot readings and spiritual guidance. And I also work as a clinical therapist. That's a little specific to my location, but I love holding space with individuals, and I'm hoping to create some group offerings sometime in the future and reinvigorate my podcast, Seeding Spells, which has a few episodes, but I've been newly inspired to feed that again. And you can I on my Instagram the past couple of months has been a lot of poetry and that's the phase or season that it's in. But I do share yeah, I share ideas about tarot and love and intimacy and grief. So I hope to meet and connect with new people.
Yay.
Yeah, my website or Instagram
Cool.
or
Amazing.
not Squarespace. I have a Substack as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I will make sure to link all of those below. Yeah. Thank you, Mallory. I love you. This has been what a gift to chill with you, talk about Julia Cameron, The Artist Way, and life. Yeah,
I love you too. Thank you for me.
of course.